The heat was unbearable that afternoon as I parked my dusty old sedan outside a fancy car dealership in downtown LA, my camera bag slung over my shoulder. I had promised to meet Keanu Reeves here, though I wasn't sure why. He had only said, "Meet me at Eastgate Motors at 3 p.m. You'll want your camera ready." As I walked through the glass doors, I could already hear the sharp voice of a man behind the counter barking at someone. "I told you, no loitering. This place isn't for people like you. No entry for the poor." The voice belonged to a tall, sharply dressed man with slicked back hair. Later I'd learn he was the dealership manager, Mr. Clyde Rawlings. He was scolding a man in worn jeans, a simple black t-shirt, and a baseball cap pulled low over his face. I stopped dead in my tracks. That man was Keanu Reeves. But Rawlings clearly didn't recognize him. The room fell silent as Keanu looked up slowly, his eyes calm but piercing. "I'm not here to loiter," he said softly. "I just wanted to look around." Rawlings scoffed. "This showroom isn't a museum for window shoppers. Get out before I call security." I instinctively raised my camera, sensing something unforgettable was about to happen. Keanu didn't move. Instead, he reached into his pocket, pulled out a small leather envelope, and placed it gently on the counter. Rawlings rolled his eyes until he opened it. His face went pale. Inside were ownership documents. Keanu Reeves wasn't here to buy a car. He had already bought the entire dealership. Rawlings staggered back as if someone had punched him in the chest. His lips moved, but no sound came out. The entire staff stopped what they were doing and stared. I could hear my own breath as I kept the camera focused, capturing every second of what felt like a once-in-a-lifetime moment. You own this place?" Rawlings finally stammered, his voice trembling. Keanu gave a soft nod, taking off his cap and revealing his unmistakable face. A young intern behind the desk gasped. "Oh my God, that's Keanu Reeves," she whispered. But Keanu wasn't smiling. He looked Rawlings dead in the eye and said, "I came here to see how people were being treated, especially the ones who don't look rich." I walked in wearing simple clothes on purpose. "And what did you do?" Rawlings tried to explain, but every word made him sink deeper. "We get a lot of people pretending here, sir. I didn't mean any harm." Keanu turned to me and said, "You getting this?" I nodded, camera rolling, heart pounding. "Let me show you something," Keanu said, leading us into the back of the dealership. We entered a private office where two executives were waiting, both of whom stood up when Keanu walked in. "Mr. Reeves," one of them said, "everything's ready. We just need your final signature." Without hesitation, Keanu signed the papers, turned around, and faced the employees who had followed us in. "As of this moment, Eastgate Motors is officially under new management," he said, "and the first decision I'm making," he paused, looking directly at Rawlings, "is to let go of people who treat others like trash just because of how they look." Rawlings blinked in disbelief. "You're firing me?" Keanu replied, "No, I'm setting you free to learn how to treat people better. You're done here." The silence that followed was like a thunderclap, but no one expected what would happen next. Because just as Rawlings stormed out, a hidden voice spoke from the hallway, and that voice would change everything. As Rawlings shoved the door open to leave, a firm voice echoed from the hallway, stopping everyone in their tracks. "Wait, I need to speak with Mr. Reeves, and with Mr. Rawlings." All eyes turned to see an elderly man in a faded military jacket step into the room, his limp noticeable, his eyes sharp. I recognized him instantly. It was Sergeant Henry Lorne, a decorated veteran and one of Keanu's oldest mentors. Keanu's expression softened with respect, but Rawlings scoffed. "Who even let this guy in?" he barked. Sergeant Lorne walked right up to him. "You don't remember me, do you?" he asked. "You kicked me out of this dealership 3 years ago when I tried to buy a used truck with my veteran's discount." The room fell silent again. Rawlings' face paled. I don't recall." But Lorne wasn't finished. "You told me people like me should be taking the bus. That's what you said. I never forgot it." Keanu clenched his fists but stayed quiet, letting the sergeant speak. Keanu helped me get that truck elsewhere. He didn't just pay for it, he drove it to my home personally. And when I heard he was buying this place, I asked him for one thing. Let me watch this man get the justice he never gave others. Rawlings looked like he might collapse. This is insane, he muttered, but Keanu stepped forward. What's insane is how many people you humiliated while wearing this dealership's badge, he said. Then Keanu turned to the stunned employees. Anyone else here who feels they've been mistreated, now's the time to speak up. Slowly, like a wave, hands began to rise. A receptionist who'd been working there for 5 years, a mechanic who had never received his promised raise, a delivery boy whose father had once been insulted in front of customers. Story after story spilled out, each worse than the last. Rawlings tried to defend himself, but the more he spoke, the worse it sounded. Keanu calmly placed a hand on the sergeant's shoulder and said, "Your silence today made more noise than his words ever will." But just then, the phone in the manager's office rang. The secretary picked it up, and her face went ghost white. "Mr. Reeves, you need to hear this. It's about the dealership's past financial records. Someone's been stealing. And it's not just Rawlings." Keanu's eyes narrowed. "Put it on speaker." What they heard next changed everything as the speaker crackled. A woman's voice from the accounting firm said, "Mr. Reeves, after your office sent us authorization, we ran a full forensic audit. We found something disturbing. Not only was Mr. Rawlings skimming profits off the books for years, but someone higher in the regional corporate office was helping him cover it up in exchange for kickbacks. You've inherited a rotten empire, Mr. Reeves." The room went dead silent. Keanu's face was calm, but his jaw clenched tightly. Rawlings tried to bolt, but 2 security guards, already alerted by Keanu's assistant, stepped in and blocked the doorway. The receptionist gasped. "I always wondered why we were short-staffed but still made record sales." Keanu looked over at me and nodded subtly. I stepped forward, holding up my phone. "We recorded everything he said when he kicked Keanu out earlier. I've already sent it to 3 journalists." Rawlings lunged at me, furious, but the guards restrained him. Then something totally unexpected happened. A woman in a sharp suit entered through the back door. It was Keanu's attorney, but not just any lawyer. This was Maya Rothman, the same woman who had taken down 2 major CEOs in a landmark whistleblower case last year. "Gentlemen," she said coolly, "we are filing charges not just for fraud, but for workplace abuse, discrimination, and criminal misappropriation of funds. And Mr. Rawlings, we have a surprise for you. This is no longer just a dealership matter. Federal agents are waiting outside." Rawlings turned white. "You set me up," he hissed at Keanu. But Keanu just smiled slightly. "No, you set yourself up years ago when you thought no one was watching." As the agent stepped in to cuff Rawlings, Keanu turned to the employees. "From today, this place is yours too. We'll restructure everything: profit sharing, medical benefits, respect." Tears welled up in the receptionist's eyes. The mechanic dropped his wrench and clapped. But I wasn't focused on them. I had spotted a man watching from outside. Someone familiar, someone I had seen once in a military uniform at an event with Keanu years ago. He made a call and disappeared. I tapped Keanu's arm. "We might have another layer to this. I think we've just scratched the surface." Keanu looked at me, serious. "Then let's dig deeper. We're not done yet." The dealership was buzzing, but not from customers. It was from the waves of truth crashing through the walls. As Rawlings was escorted out in cuffs, Keanu Reeves sat down with the employees. "Not like a boss, but like a teammate. Tell me everything," he said. And one by one, stories came out. A single mother who hadn't been allowed a day off for her sick child. A veteran technician forced to work unpaid overtime. A saleswoman denied promotions while less qualified. Men rose quickly. Keanu didn't just listen, he wrote it all down. But my eyes kept drifting to the man I saw earlier. I had a feeling we hadn't seen the end of him. Later that afternoon, Keanu called a meeting with the press outside the dealership. This isn't just about one manager or one store. It's about people who think power gives them permission to crush others. We're going to change that. Just as he spoke, 3 black SUVs pulled up. Out came 2 federal agents. One of them whispered something into Keanu's attorney's ear. She nodded gravely and looked at Keanu. It's bigger than we thought. The laundering goes all the way to the car manufacturer's executive board. Gasps rippled through the crowd. But before anyone could ask questions, a loud voice interrupted from the back. You think you can just walk in here and destroy decades of business? A tall, suited man stepped forward. It was Richard Kessler, a board member known for ruthless takeovers. You may own this dealership, Mr. Reeves, but I own the network that supplies your cars. You're nothing without us. Keanu didn't blink. Then maybe it's time I stop selling your cars. The crowd was stunned. The reporter whispered, that could bankrupt the entire dealership chain. But Keanu leaned toward me and said, let them come. I'd rather burn this down and rebuild with truth than keep walls built on lies. Suddenly, the man in the military uniform appeared again, this time walking straight toward Keanu. He saluted sharply. Mr. Reeves, I served with your father. He died exposing men just like Kessler. You're walking the same path and you're not alone. The man handed Keanu a file marked, Confidential, Operation Hammertruth. My heart stopped. Whatever was in that file, it wasn't just business. This was about legacy, revenge, and justice. Keanu opened it slowly, and his hands trembled. Keanu held the thick folder in his hands, his eyes scanning the first few pages as his face turned pale. I leaned in, trying to see what was written, but before I could read anything, he snapped the file shut and whispered, This goes deeper than I imagined. They used my father. The man in uniform nodded. Your father was part of a covert operation to expose corporate corruption tied to government contracts. But when he got too close, they made it look like an accident. We've been waiting years for someone like you to reopen the case. I saw something shift in Keanu's expression. Not fear, not anger, but a quiet fire. He stood tall and faced the reporters. Everyone wants to talk about my acting. Forget that. This is real. My father tried to bring justice, and they silenced him. I won't let them do it again. At that moment, the crowd fell into silence. Even Kessler, the arrogant board member, took a step back, but he quickly recovered and smirked. You're chasing ghosts, Reeves. This will ruin your reputation. Keanu smiled, almost sadly. Then let it. I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to finish what he started. Suddenly, a car sped into the lot, screeching to a halt. A woman jumped out, mid-30s, fierce, eyes wearing a military badge. She walked straight up to Keanu. I'm Captain Marie Donovan. I was your father's second in command. He didn't just die. He left something behind for you. She handed him a metal box with his father's initials. Keanu opened it slowly. Inside was a small camera, an old dog tag, and a letter. His hands shook as he unfolded the paper. I watched tears fill his eyes as he read. He didn't say a word. He just handed me the note. It read, If you're reading this, it means they got to me. But I never stopped believing that you would. One day, finish what I started. Follow the names in the folder. Trust no one in a suit, and always remember, injustice is louder than fear. Keanu clenched the letter in his fist, turned to me and said, We're going to bring them all down. Every single one. The wind picked up, blowing the dealership flag into the air. But this wasn't just a story about a car dealership anymore. This was a war that began decades ago, and was only now coming to light. Keanu and I left the dealership with the metal box clutched tightly in his hands, heading straight to an old hangar that Captain Marie Donovan had directed us to, a location his father once used as a safe house. The building looked abandoned from the outside, but once inside, Keanu found a hidden panel behind a rusted shelf. With trembling hands, he used his father's dog tag as a key, and the wall clicked open, revealing a narrow staircase descending into darkness. As we stepped into the underground chamber, the lights flickered on automatically, revealing dozens of boxes, maps, and photos pinned to a large board. This was a war room. Your father was tracking everyone connected to the corruption. Marie whispered, pointing to a group photo of high-ranking officials including the same board members who now ran the dealership empire. Keanu stared in disbelief. "They've built a fortune off of silencing people like my father," he said. As we examined the documents, we found a recording hidden in a dusty VHS tape labeled Final Testimony. We quickly played it. On screen, Keanu's father appeared, voice low and serious. "If they're watching this, they've likely taken me out. But know this, they're not invincible. They control the narrative, the money, even the military contracts, but they fear one thing: exposure. I've hidden a full list of names inside the dealership's master vault disguised as client records. Only my son will be able to retrieve it with the code. What matters most is truth." Keanu closed his eyes, repeating the words. "What matters most is truth." Just then we heard a loud metallic crash upstairs. Someone had followed us. Marie pulled her sidearm and nodded. "We're not alone." The lights flickered again, and then everything went dark. From the shadows above, a voice shouted, "You should have left it alone, Reeves." We grabbed what documents we could and bolted up the stairs. At the top, masked men with flashlights blocked the exits. But before they could close in, a black SUV crashed through the wall, driven by none other than John, the same janitor the dealership had fired years ago. "Get in!" he yelled. We jumped in as bullets hit the back of the vehicle. As we sped off, Keanu looked at John and asked, "Why are you helping us?" John gave a grim smile. "Because your father saved my life. Now I'm repaying that debt." Keanu looked forward, determination burning in his eyes. "Then we take this all the way, no matter the cost." As John drove us through back roads, to avoid being followed, Keanu sat quietly going through the stolen documents with trembling fingers. Each file revealed a darker truth: illegal arms deals, shell companies used for laundering, and secret contracts signed with forged signatures, including one using his father's name after his death. "They didn't just erase him," Keanu whispered, his voice filled with fury. "They used him to build their empire." We reached John's hideout, an off-grid cabin loaded with communication jammers, food supplies, and old radio equipment. John explained he had once been in military intelligence and went into hiding after discovering the same corruption Keanu's father had tried to expose. Marie patched into a secured satellite line and contacted an old journalist friend named Lacey, someone willing to risk everything to get the truth out. But just as Lacey confirmed she'd published the story, we heard a chopper overhead. Keanu glanced at the radar monitor. It showed a heat signature fast approaching. "They found us," John growled, cocking his rifle. We barely had time to scatter before the entire front wall of the cabin exploded. Masked mercenaries stormed in, armed with advanced tech. John held them off while we escaped through an underground tunnel, but not before Keanu saw something that made him freeze. One of the attackers wore his father's old dog tag, the same tag he had used to open the war room. "That's impossible," he muttered. Once we were outside, we managed to reach Lacey's meetup point at an abandoned news station, only to find her, unconscious, tied to a chair and a note stabbed into the wall. "Turn back or he dies again." Enraged, Keanu screamed, "They're still watching everything. This is bigger than we thought." I asked him what he meant, and he slowly turned toward me. "That man with my father's tag, that wasn't just a warning. It means he's either alive or someone's using his identity." The room went silent. Marie shook her head. "No. If your father is alive, they've kept him hidden for decades." Keanu's eyes narrowed. "Then we need to find him. He's the missing piece." Just then, Marie's encrypted tablet buzzed. A message from a military satellite intercepted a strange transmission. "Subject 119 activated. Memory suppressants failing." Keanu grabbed the screen. "That's my father's old code name." And in that moment, everything changed. Because this wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was a race against time to find the man who held the key to bringing down an empire. We had no choice but to act fast. The encrypted satellite data Marie Intercepted led us to a name buried in decades of classified intel, Project Lazarus. It was a covert operation rumored to involve psychological manipulation, deep-fake identity reprogramming, and memory suppression, all designed for creating ghost operatives, soldiers who didn't know they were soldiers. The file mentioned Subject 119 repeatedly, Keanu's father. John, who once trained in advanced recon under Black Ops, turned pale when he read it. "I thought Project Lazarus was shut down years ago," he said. "If Subject 119 is active again, then they never shut it down. They buried it, and him." Keanu stared at the file in disbelief. "They didn't kill my father. They turned him into something else." We traced the last Lazarus signal to a decommissioned naval prison off the coast, officially a storage facility, but recent heat scans showed movement. Too precise, too patterned. We infiltrated under the cover of night, but what we found inside shattered Keanu's world. Lined up in locked cells were men who looked ordinary, until we realized they all had identical tattoos on their wrists, the Lazarus mark. In the farthest chamber, secured by retinal scan and voice match, was Subject 119. An older man, alive, calm, and staring at Keanu as if seeing a ghost. You're not real," he said in a flat voice, then collapsed. We rushed to help him, but alarms blared and automatic steel walls began to close in. We barely dragged his unconscious body into a ventilation shaft before being sealed off. As we escaped back to the surface, Keanu held his father's hand, whispering, "You're going to remember me. You have to." Once aboard a stolen speedboat, John examined the old man. "He's been chemically mind-wiped, repeatedly, but it can be reversed and if we get to a secure facility." As we raced towards safety, the waves behind us lit up with pursuing drones. But the real twist came when Subject 119 suddenly opened his eyes, gripped Keanu's arm, and said in a low whisper, "They planted someone close to you. Don't trust her." We all froze. Marie went pale, and Keanu's expression changed instantly. "Who is it?" he asked, locking eyes with me and then her. Marie didn't answer. Her hand slid behind her back. I stepped between them. "Wait, what are you doing?" And then she spoke, voice trembling. "I had no choice. They have my brother. I never meant to betray you." The boat rocked violently as drones closed in, but the real storm had already begun, right here between us. Before anyone could react, Marie tossed a flash drive into my hands and shouted, "Everything's on there. The real plan, the names, the locations, the replacements. I was supposed to hand you over, Keanu, but I couldn't go through with it." Just as Keanu reached for her, a sniper drone struck the edge of the boat, sending us all diving for cover. Subject 119, the father, grabbed Marie's wrist in a shockingly strong grip and muttered, "You're not the enemy, but you're being watched." John took over the controls, weaving us through a storm of drones while I plugged in the flash drive. What I saw froze my blood. The Lazarus Project had already begun Phase 4, replacing political leaders with enhanced sleeper agents. Their plan wasn't just to erase identities, it was to rewrite power across the world. Keanu leaned over, his voice raw. "They used my father to perfect this tech. He wasn't just a test subject, he was the prototype." Suddenly, Subject 119 sat upright. "I remember the voice and the man in the mirror. They called him Omega. He runs everything." That name rang a bell. Omega had been a myth in our circles, a faceless ghost who controlled black programs from the shadows, and now we knew he was real. Marie said quietly, "Omega's next appearance is scheduled at a UN peace conference. Tomorrow. He's going in as a US diplomat." Keanu clenched his fists, looking at the storm ahead. "Then we go there. We expose everything. We stop this." But before we could plan further, Subject 119 grabbed Keanu's hand and stared into his eyes. "I remember you, riding that broken bike, falling and laughing. Your mother's voice." A tear rolled down his cheek. "I'm sorry I couldn't protect you." Keanu, overwhelmed, embraced him, but it was short-lived. A final drone swooped in, locking on Marie. She stood up and turned toward us. Go, I'll buy you time. Before we could stop her, she launched a flare that blinded the drone, and then dove into the sea with it exploding behind her. We escaped. Barely. At the next morning's press conference, we hid in the shadows, watching the man on stage. Keanu whispered, "That's him. Omega." And I nodded, holding the flash drive in one hand and the remote to every screen in the room in the other. Let's end this. The lights dimmed, the feed began to play, and the world held its breath. Please subscribe channel for Keanu Reeves respect. Thanks.